Hi, welcome back. This is Mark Mancini with VRB Outstanding, and this week's episode is on logos and house names. Thank you for joining us this week. We're going to talk about logos and house names and branding. In a previous episode, we talked about specialty advertising and branding. So I invited Rick Bernstein from MBM Advertising back again this week to discuss more detail about logos and branding and house names to further enhance the repeat customers and having your home stand out above others who either don't have a name or a brand or logo, or have something very generic. And one thing I know with my homes is I try to choose a name for the home that'll stand out. I want people to remember it, to use it, and to share it. So that's why I like picking out these house names. And I know Rick, kind of nudged me sometimes on some of my house names and made some comments, right, Rick?
Well, I was kind of curious where you came up with the house names.
So, interesting story on the first one. So about a decade or so ago, I purchased a home, and it was an unusual home. And at the time, Big Bang Theory was a pretty big hit. So the home was very unusual. It was just built very one-off. I couldn't think of anything more one-off than Sheldon from Big Bang Theory, and the one episode early on where he said "Bazinga." And I didn't even have to create a logo. There was one already for me. So the house name of Bazinga came from Big Bang Theory, and where that came from. And then our next home is one in the Keys, the Florida Keys, and we called that one the Oasis. And that's actually got a twofold story to it, Rick. It's kind of interesting. When you first step foot onto the property, it's 3 acres. There has to be 100 and something palm trees, all lit up at night. White sand, oceanfront in the Florida Keys. It's just incredible. The views are majestic. Alligator Reef Lighthouse is in the background. There's only one word that you can describe and one name this place can have, and that's called the Oasis. Now, Rick, you're one of the few people that knows I'm a nerd, right? And one of my favorite movies...
Big time.
You know it. One of my favorite movies was a Steven Spielberg movie called Ready Player One. And it was a virtual reality world. It wasn't called Meta, it was called the Oasis. And so it's a dual-fold meaning because it shows my nerdy side by going ahead and showing that there's virtual reality, and what we use as a tagline is the Oasis, reality, not virtual. So
well, I doubt many people will know the second reference to, as far as when is the place as beautiful as the pictures that I've seen. I've never been there, but obviously, I think once you get to look at the place, it's obviously going to be called the Oasis, but not for your reference as far as being a nerd goes. You can keep that one to yourself.
Well, my fellow nerds will understand. And when we're closing on it in a few weeks, actually, probably by the time this airs, we've already closed on it. It's called the Heart of Murata. And we called it that because it's a detached townhome that's in the downtown part of Alamorada. And Alamorada, its downtown is not like a downtown. It's several restaurants and some shops. But we call it the Heart of Murata. And because you walk across the street and you're right there in the heart of Alamorada. So that's how we got those names. And, there's other names that... Rick, tell me some of the names of some of the places you stayed. Do you recall of any that... places you stayed throughout the years?
Some of the names that I could think about would be Epiphany, Channel's End, Epiphany, Royal Swan, Wildcat Cove, Most of those names are from Chincoteague Island in Virginia. So, and while the names, are not something that we get involved in so much, as far as the naming, because typically, as you just pointed out, it's kind of a personal thing. Usually, it has something either to do with the property itself, or as we discussed before, if somebody is a USC fan and they were able to tie in, something that they love themselves, like a university, college, then they can tie it into their home. But often, it's about the state of where you're at, like Epiphany. The Channel's End obviously was at the end of a channel. That was pretty obvious. It didn't take too much time, to come up with that one.
But
Wildcat.
Sometimes the most obvious ones, it's Occam's razor, right? The most obvious is the
Yeah.
one you go with.
Yeah, I don't think you have to overthink it too much. I definitely think it's something that you come up with a few names, you kind of you write down a few, you rattle it off. You're going to probably come up with a few revisions, and you go with your gut.
Yeah, you run them by friends, and again, it is a very personal thing. A lot of times people will ask me, Mark, could you help me name the property? And it's hard for someone else to name something that's personal. I'd have to sleep there and get to know it.
Yeah.
But some of my favorite, I want to share with you, Rick, was I had friends of ours down the road here, and their last name is Kite, like fly a kite. So they named their beach rental Kites on the Beach. There was another one. It was a really big house with 8 or 9 bedrooms, and it's called All In. Somebody else was a fan of SpongeBob, and they called theirs Bikini Bottom. And as you mentioned, if you're, we were talking earlier offline, if you're a graduate of USC, University of South Carolina, somebody named their house US and then SEA, USC. And then, of course, there's the ones that need no explanation, like you said, Epiphany. But I've seen Latitude Adjustment, which is cute, and Stand By Me. It's a play on words, and as you said, sometimes it's at Channel's End, and that's what we call it.
I agree. I think it doesn't. I think if you overthink it too much, you may never pick a name because you'll be going around for quite a while. And if you ask too many people, you're going to get way too many answers. So you got to definitely go with your gut. But I do like some of. I think I like when there's a play on the name, like you mentioned the family name Kite. You might not originally think about their family name, but obviously, when you told me, is it called Kites on the Beach?
Kites on the Beach, yeah.
I just thought it was a place, there was a great breeze for flying kites. I never would have known, but it's perfect if that's what it's for.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's a family name really ties it in nicely between a personal reason and also to somebody else might not even know it.
And the reason why I love sharing that one is because sometimes people get stuck in a name, and their name may be something like that, right? And so maybe their last name is Castle, so they call it Sand Castles or something. You really can do things like that. But after you find that name, and personally, I think you have to find the name first. You find that name, the next step. And we talk about this in my course on VRBOutstanding.com, is the next step should be the logo.
Yes.
And this is where I'm not the creative person, so I hand it over to you, Rick.
Well, the logo itself, is extremely important for a multitude of reasons. Obviously, it's got to have, some longevity. I find that another thing, just like you don't want to overthink the name, you don't want to overthink the logo, but it is important to put some time into it. And the design that you're going to do with the logo is so important for various reasons, because you're not probably considering the applications that you're going to use it for. Something that Mark and I had discussed where it was signs. Like you're going to probably have signs, maybe on the front of the property. If there's a dock on the back of the house, you're going to probably want to put, a sign on the dock. Then when we tied it into branding, some of the products that you're going to do, not every logo will work with some of the products. So you may end up finding that yourself, you have, the neighbor's kid, likes graphic design, comes up with a logo, and it can be very complex. for many reasons, not just about colors, but it could just be very complex and a lot of detail that might not work. For some things it works and some things it doesn't. So just like with our corporate clients, we discuss those things, and we talk about with the products that we do embroidery, screen printing, laser engraving, and sometimes logos don't always apply themselves to some of those things. The logo that you have on the screen, you have it in a one color version and a full color as well. So you get to use it, in different areas. And if I was going to embroider this logo, there's a possibility that the lighthouse might not be able to have all the detail, but we can keep the integrity of the logo. So when somebody comes to me from step one, we actually love to be able to do the art. We love to be able to work with them. Most of it is going to come from them as far as designing the logo. They have to have input. They can't just say to me, here's the name of our place, design a logo. Well, we're going to want to have input. So just like, when you were, we didn't do that logo that you just showed, but you discussed with me, what do I think? And I discussed with you the different variables. And the fact that you had a one color version is very important.
Easier. And Rick, I appreciate your time coming in here because you've been doing this for 30-something years, I know, and you've done small companies, you've also done large companies, and you've got a breadth of experience.
Well, thanks for having me on.
I thank you. Well, it's been a great talk, and again, thanks for watching us this week on VRB Outstanding. Don't forget, we have our courseware at VRBOutstanding.com. The only short-term rental course that gives you a money-back guarantee. That's how good we know it is. We're going to see you again next week with another new episode, so stay around.